Welcome to Amateur Decorating Like a Pro. I am Catherine. It's that time again, guys. It's time for another Festive Friday holiday decorating collaboration. And joining me today is the lovely Angelic Interior Designs by Shenell and Breeze Project Book and Dezinefun with Michelle. I'm going to have the link to their channels in the description box of this video, as well as our playlist.
It's a fact, guys. I cannot predict what you're going to like about a DIY. Now, in the recent video, I said, do you guys want me to do a total bling wrap tree? And I got some comments. There they are, right there on the screen. So you can see I got comments. So I'm going to go ahead and do that bling wrap cone tree. Let's go ahead and go to work.
Now, to create a cone using the cheapest poster board out there, you can get them 2 for $1 at the Dollar Tree. You begin by rolling your poster board from the corner, ensuring that you maintain a sharp point at the top. That is, if you want the cone to be pointy. And roll it, maintain the point, and once you get to the end, apply a piece of Scotch tape. I didn't want my trees to be taller than 20 inches, so I measured and I marked my cut line. Let's say you want to create a vignette. This is a great thing to do to measure your cones in advance. Let's say you want to have a 21-inch tree. The next one might be 18 inches, and then from there you might have one that is 15 inches. I created a prototype tree earlier, and this is it. And here I am actually circling the base to make sure that I make the others about the same size on the bottom. I don't want it to be too narrow, nor do I want it to be too wide. And this is about 6 inches, so every time I make a cone before I apply the glue, I would put it in this little area here. Now, you can easily get the swing of this. Once you've made a couple, you can just eyeball it. You know what the size is going to be, you know what the length is going to be, and you're pretty much done in about 1 minute. I decided to paint one of the cones rose gold. I noticed that when I did the prototype, that white cone was basically glowing through the bling wrap. And I figured with this monochromatic effect, it would really show off the rose gold. And you'll see in just a little bit, I was right. As I mentioned before in an earlier video, this bling wrap is from Totally Dazzled. It measures 10 yards long, and I do believe the width is about 4.5 inches. So you want to create 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches squares. I cut about 24 of those 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch bling squares. And then I took 23 of those squares and I cut them into 4 equal size sections. In other words, those little sections are probably going to be about 2.25 inches square. Here's what all the cuts and measurements looked like. Like I said, you'll cut one of the pieces 3 inches by 3 inches for the top of the tree. And that's when you'll have those little scraps left over. Those will be your only scraps. This is up to you, but I noticed that some bling wrap will have threads that will be sewn into it, and it will create a grain line that can go in an opposite direction. And even though bling wrap is consistent with the way the bling is, but the threads will kind of look weird. So I basically made sure that every piece that I placed on these cone trees was exactly in the same direction. It's kind of like sewing corduroy or velvet. Now here is where we speed everything up. You start by placing the pieces onto the cone, and only half of the piece is on the bottom of the cone. Just a small amount of glue at the top of each piece is enough to secure it to the cone. If you're really concerned about spacing, you can go from side to side, north, south, east, and west with applying the pieces. That way you can have equal distance apart. Now I want you to see that I overlapped a great deal on that last piece, but it doesn't mess up the process. So don't worry if this happens to you. This is the first row, and the second row will fill in the spaces for you. Now for the rest of this video, I'm going to work back and forth between the rose gold and the silver. So it'll be the same steps being taken, but they'll just be at different times on both of those two trees. So let's take a look. I've just applied the second row in between the spaces of the first row. You want to continue applying your pieces counterclockwise all the way up with a little bit of an overlap that's no more than about a ½ inch, which forms automatically when you're filling in those spaces. Now, not to be anal about this project, but I know a lot of people are like myself, you just want a really great looking DIY. So I did take notes, and I wanted to know how many pieces that I put on each row. So here it is. From row 1 through 9, there are 7 pieces per row. In row 10, there are 6 pieces. Row 11 and row 12, there are 5 pieces each. And in row 13 and row 14, there are 4 pieces each. And by the time you get to row 15, there are 3 pieces. Now, because our main pieces are all the same size, they're going to fan out a little bit the closer you get to the top of the tree. You can go back and just add a few dots of glue to those overlapping edges to hold them down. Now, I would recommend that you come within 1.5 inches from the top before you add that large piece to wrap around the top of the tree. So by now you should have noticed that the tree has created a spiral effect all the way up from the bottom to the top of the tree. So when you get to the top of the tree and you see those smaller pieces sticking out Well, what you want to do is add a little glue along those edges, but please flow with the spirals of the tree. Now, when you add that 3x3 piece for your topper, flow also with the spirals of your tree. Basically, you turn it to like a harlequin effect at the top, and you want to just place a few of those blings on the very tip of the tree, glue those down, and wrap the piece around the top of the tree. And that's it. Now, depending on the size of the top of your tree, if you have to trim away a little bit of the bling, by all means do so. It will still be beautiful. Now, my glue gun has been unplugged. It is warm, so I'm not touching hot glue. I was so glad that I did the prototype because I determined that I needed to paint that cone rose gold, and you can see the difference. This is the prototype here. And then I knew the exact size to make that topper for you guys so you could get the accurate information and you wouldn't stress out about anything going wrong with this project. Well, that's it for your requested DIY. I am so glad that you guys inspired me to do this. These are so beautiful, and the rose gold one is going to be a gift to one of my clients. I absolutely love that one, and I'm so glad that I added that paint, guys. You see the difference that it made? Now, please click the playlist in the description box below or on the iCard and check out my partners, Shenell, Michelle, and Bree, and see what they're up to this week. Thank you so much for becoming a part of my family by subscribing to my channel as well as theirs, and turn on your notifications by pressing the bell. Thanks a lot for watching, and as always, stay in prayer and stay creative.